Envision falling through a little opening in a frozen lake, entering a restricted, completely dull entry, loaded up with frigid water and sliding north of 400 ft. This is precisely exact thing 5 valiant completion jumpers did. In February 2014, things began well, however. Unfateful occasions consistently changed everything in seconds. A decent and steadfast companion left, with an impossible, painful choice: save yourself or your companion. This is the Plura Cave fiasco, a calamity hard to process there. Plura Cave, while wonderful, is similarly destructive in the event that you plunge into this unusual lake, known as Plura, and swim underground for a portion of a kilometer. You will arise into a long, bright cavern for plunging fans. You can move out of the water here to respect the cavern prior to getting back to Plura anyway. For those having broad preparation, extensive experience, and an unquenchable interest, a really trying choice anticipates forging ahead with a difficult course that quickly plummets into freezing, completely dark waters, exploring through an underground pocket of water, known as a sump. After effectively crossing this obstruction, you'll ultimately climb to the cavern of style flagellate. Your exit, arranged roughly 90 m over the vayed roof of the cavern, appears as a fissure in the fell side of a slope. On 6 February 2014, two jumpers cut a 3-sided opening in the ice at Plura and, encased in waterproof dry suits and plunging gear, slipped into the water 2 hours after the fact, after the residue raised by the principal jumpers had been permitted to settle 3 of their companions, followed behind. Each of the 5 people shared a typical objective shinal fled. Among them were Patrick Grun-Clench, Hanyari Hinin Vesa Ranin Yari Uzumaki, and Kai Keenin. These jumpers had shaped associates through their investigations in the Ojimo mine, arranged toward the west of Helsinki following their standard practice. There was no assigned pioneer among them anyway. Patrick Grankvist, one of the threesome that had uncovered the entry interfacing the caverns the earlier year, started to lead the pack. For this campaign he was joined by his dear companion, Yudi Huinan, who was endeavoring to navigate for the first time. The outing was at the outrageous finish of a risky game, not at all like the common novice jumper, who could participate in plunges enduring between 30 minutes to an hour. The excursion to Steinel Flagellate would be a 5-hour plunge with the guide of underwater bikes at such profundities and temperatures. A tear in a dry suit on the sharp cavern floor could bring about death. There is additionally the chance of hardware disappointment and hypercapnia, carbon dioxide harming, in light of the fact that carbon dioxide retains into the circulation system a lot quicker and more straightforward at profundities. Cave jumpers use rebreathers, which falsely retain the carbon dioxide they breathe out. However, these can become overburdened on the off chance that the jumpers begin breathing rapidly, and at profundity it is more hard for them to control their breathing. Hypercapnia can be lethal, yet even a gentle case might create turmoil and confusion, which in a profound cavern is at risk to have serious results. Roughly 1 hour into the plunge, soon after exploring and dropping to a point around 110 m underneath the Plura Cave, entrance Grankvist had an acknowledgement. Huinan was as of now not behind. He returned and found that his companion had experienced troubles in a bound region of the cavern. Huinan was trapped in a tight segment, ensnared in a string connected to a part of his gear, and was flagging misery. With his light, Hinin appeared to be beginning to overreact, which implied he gambled with breathing too quick. Grankvist provided him with a chamber of gas to diminish how much carbon dioxide in his framework, yet while Huitarainen was exchanging mouthpieces, he began powerlessly gulping water to Grun-Clench Hand's shock. His companion kicked the bucket in front of his eyes, yet getting unsettled would jeopardize Grun-Clench Hand himself of hypercapnia. After a concise work to free the body, he constrained himself to quiet down. With no elective, he settled on the choice to proceed towards Steinel Flagellate, yet at slow speed. Experienced jumpers, knowledgeable in Remote ocean investigation comprehend that going straight forwardly to the surface can cause decompression disorder. Grankvist realized he would need to go through hours making extra decompression stops prior to surfacing, saving his own life, and realizing that the subsequent gathering would experience Hainin's body. He continued on V. Santinon, driving the subsequent group, confronted a difficult choice at the restricted entry. He needed to pick either passing the departed jumper or making an extensive excursion back through the most profound segment. Ronin selected to push ahead a choice he thought about savvy, yet it added around 15 minutes to his battle to move beyond the dormant jumper. This decision broadened his decompression time by an additional 3 hours, in the long run rejoining him. With grown clench hand anyway, Ronin had to surface 80 minutes sooner than arranged, as he was running dangerously short on gas. Not long after, he began encountering less than overwhelming agonies in his knees and elbows, demonstrative of decompression affliction, ordinarily known as the bends. Over the ensuing hours, these side effects deteriorated. Later, Renan and found that Jari Uzumaki, the jumper behind him, likewise confronted difficulties when they arrived at the site of the underlying mishap. It is guessed that Uzumaki overreacted after he arrived at the location of the main mishap. There, fifth Kai Keenan endeavored yet neglected to save Uzumaki anyway. Keenan has referenced that his recollections of precisely what happened are questionable. What he strikingly recalls is that, not normal for Visa Rantainen, Cone chose not to push through to Stog Flaggart. Rather, he pivoted and swam the long way back to the beginning stage. He at last rose up out of the cavern in the early hours of the following day, over 11 hours, in the wake of setting off on a jump that should require 5 hours to arrive at the outer layer of Plura. He needed to get through a slender layer of ice. Each of the 3 survivors were hospitalized because of decompression disorder following the crushing mishap. The recuperation of the fallen jumpers' bodies turned into a praiseworthy mission for their enduring partners. This feeling possibly expanded when an authority recuperation endeavor by a group of experienced English cavern jumpers was cancelled because of the great dangers experienced. Regardless of the cavern being authoritatively shut for additional investigation, a huge group of experienced Finnish and Norwegian jumpers arranged a second recuperation activity in secret. The recuperation group incorporated the enduring cavern jumpers, a sum of 27 people, shown up at Plura de Lan on spring 22 and 2014, including 17 blades and 10 Norwegians. 2 groups of help jumpers were assigned to work at shallower levels at the 2 finishes of the Navigate. In the meantime, Grun Clenchhan Parkarinen and Kennan arranged for one more plunge to the most profound segment of the cavern to recover the bodies, regardless of recuperating from a spinal physical issue brought about by decompression disorder. Vesa assumed the job of surface chief during the recuperation endeavor. The earlier cavern insight of the subsequent group gave them an advantage over the underlying salvage group, playing it safe this time. The most vital phase in the 5-day activity included shipping over a lot of stuff into the cavern. At Steinel Flage, this stuff was continuously winched up a link to the mountain. Daily was spent setting up gear, putting 50 gas chambers along the course, and laying out a submerged environment on the Plura side for depressure stops. This natural surroundings furnished jumpers with a space to get away from the virus water, eliminate their veils, and even eat if essential. On spring 24, the jumpers started the recuperation activity, lowering underneath the frigid top of Plura, joined by submerged camera administrators, passing the drifting group of Jari Uzumaki. They experienced Jari A. Shrin, and roughly 20 m further on, precisely as Grunklench Hand had left him 7 weeks sooner. By removing the hardware, they effectively delivered the body and explored it through the limited segment of the cavern. Grunklench Hand utilized a plunge bike to guide towards the surface, towing the body, while Pakarainen followed to help with moving it. Returning the next day, Grunklench Hand and Pakarainen, supported by another jumper, Joni Santala, recovered Yari Uzumaki body. This time the recuperation from Steinle flagette demonstrated really testing the body was more light and clumsy, and Parkin confronted a near fiasco when a piece of the cavern fell on him by the two casualties were lifted to Steinflaget, where they were put in body packs, gave by Groenklench Hans fire station. The whole situation consumed 101 hours of plunging time, finishing up with a snapshot of quiet in the wonderful cavern.